Hi you guys, I hope everything is going well with the sub. I know a lot of you guys emailed me saying you were struggling with the homework assignment, so I'm going to do a few examples of the homework assignment, and then I will send an answer key as well, and then you can just send me any more emails with any more questions that you guys might have. Alright, so in problem 1, what you want to do is make a diamond, and you're going to use the constant term. It's going to go on the top of the diamond, and the coefficient in front of the variable is going to go on the bottom of the diamond. And so you're trying to think of two numbers that multiply to 18 and add to 9. And in this case, those two numbers are going to be 6 and 3. 3 times 6 is 18, and 3 plus 6 is 9. So one way to do this, using the same method of factoring by grouping, is to separate 9m and make it look kind of different. So I'll show you guys. M squared plus, instead of 9m, I'm going to put 3m plus 6m plus 18. And the 3m and the 6m come from this 3 and this 6 right here. 3 plus 6 is still 9m, so you're just separating those terms apart. They're still equivalent. 3m plus 6m is still the same as 9m. You're just separating them into two parts. And so once you get to this step, we're going to factor by grouping. So this will be our first group. This will be the second group. And so I'm going to look at the first group. I notice that they both have an m, so I'm going to factor out an m. If I do that, on the inside I'm left with m plus 3. Over here, 6m and 18, the greatest common factor between both of these is 6. So I'm going to factor out a 6. And 6m divided by 6 is 1m, or just m. 18 divided by 6 is 3, so we get m plus 3. And then if I look at both of these terms, they each have an m plus 3 in them. So I'm going to factor out the m plus 3. And what's left when I factor that out is m plus 6. M plus 6. So I get m plus 3 and m plus 6. It's no coincidence that I ended up with m plus 3 and m plus 6. That actually came from these two numbers over here. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the same problem but a different method. This method is shorter, probably easier to understand. The only downside to it is it only works when the coefficient in front of your squared term is 1. So the number in front of this term is a 1, meaning that the shortcut will work. So here's the shortcut. You make the box again with 18 on, or sorry, the X again with 18 on top and 9 on bottom. Once again, we're asking what multiplies to 18 and adds to 9. That's 6 and 3. And this only works in this scenario when there's only a 1 in front of your m squared. That you can go straight from that to x plus 3, x plus 6, and get your answer. So it's much quicker and probably easier, but it only works in these types of problems where there's not a different number in front of your squared term. Like these ones, problem 3 and problem 5, problem 7, all of these have a different number in front of the squared term. It's not 1 in front of them. The leading coefficient is 3, 5, or 6, which means we can't use the shortcut. So the only time that the shortcut works is when there's a 1 in front of the squared term, or when they don't write a number in front of the squared term. So in problems 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8, the shortcut works, but in 3, 5, and 7, the shortcut doesn't work. Okay, so starting problem 2, I made the diamond, or the X, whatever you want to call it, using the constant term on top and the coefficient in front of A on bottom. So we have to think of two numbers that multiply to negative 27 and add up to 6. After thinking about it a little bit, I figured out that 9 times negative 3 is negative 27, and 9 plus negative 3 is 6. Since the coefficient of a squared is 1, I can use the shortcut and just write a plus 9, a minus 3. And I now realize I made a mistake over here. My variables, instead of x, should be m. This should have been m plus 3, m plus 6. That's one thing that I mess up on a lot, is I always want to put x when I should be using the variable that's in the expression already. Alright, so I've shown you guys two types of problems where you can use the shortcut. So I'm going to show you guys another two where you can't use the shortcut. And it's going to be slightly different. Okay, so on number 3, I'm still going to use the x, but to figure out what goes on top of the x, I have to multiply the coefficient of your squared term times the constant term. So 3 times 54, and that should be 162. Make sure you check my math. I'm a little bit out of it right now. My brain is a little bit fuzzy, so make sure that you're checking all of my work throughout the video. So 3 times 54, I think, is 162. And then the middle term, the negative 33, that goes on bottom. So we have to think of two numbers that add to negative 33 and multiply to 162. Okay, so after some thinking and checking with my calculator, trying some different numbers out, I figured out that negative 6 times negative 27 equals 162, and negative 6 plus negative 27 is negative 33. So I'm going to split this apart. I have 3n squared minus 6n minus 27n plus 54. So what I did was I split negative 33n into negative 6 and negative 27. That way I can group these together and then factor out the common factor. So 3n goes into both of these, so I'm going to factor out a 3n. If I factor out a 3n, I'm left with n. Let's see, 6 divided by 3 is 2, so n minus 2. Over here, let's see, what goes into 27 and 54? I believe 27 goes into both of them. So I'm going to factor out a negative 27. And then I would be left with n minus 2 in parentheses. And then as I look at this, I notice that they each have an n minus 2. So I can factor this as n minus 2, 3n minus 27. And this is a skill that takes time to learn. So if you guys don't get it right away, it's not because you're dumb, it's not because you're not capable or anything else. It just is one of those things that takes some time. So be patient with yourselves and keep trying it and asking the sub for help. I will also email the answer key for you guys. Before I do that, I will do one more problem with you guys. I'll do number 5. So once again, you're going to multiply the first term times the last term, or the squared term times the constant term. 5 times 60, I think that's 300, but I'm going to pause and... Okay, so I checked, it is 300. So that goes on top, and then the 35 goes on bottom. So I'm going to think of two numbers that multiply to 300 and add to 35. So they have to multiply to this and add to this. And I'm going to pause the video because even after years of studying math, it still takes me a little bit of time and effort and like checking and guessing in order to figure out the two numbers. So I'm going to pause this. Okay, so after a while of guessing and checking, trying out different numbers and factors, I found out that 15 times 20 is 300, and 15 plus 20 is 35. So I'm going to rewrite this as 5v squared plus 15v plus 20v plus 60. So I'm writing out 35 as 15v plus 20v. And this makes sure that I can factor by grouping. So then I'm thinking of numbers that go into 5 and 15. I know that 5 and v goes into each term. So I factor out 5v. If I divide this by 5v, I'm left with v. 15v divided by 5v is 3. Okay, and as I look at this one, 20 goes into itself and 60, so I can factor out a 20. And I'm left with, let's see, 20v divided by 20 is v. 60 divided by 20 is 3. And so I end up with v plus 3, 5v plus 20. And that's my answer. Alright, it's a little bit late and I'm a little bit out of it right now. But if you guys have any other questions for me, please send me an email and I will respond as quickly as I can. I miss you guys a ton. I hope class is going well, and I'll keep checking my email and recovering as fast as I can so that I can come back and see you guys again. All right, well, have a great time in class. I hope this helped, and remember to email me if you need anything else.